In today's video, we continue our NHL season preview series as we look through teams now in the Metro Division for the upcoming 25-26 NHL season. Our last team we looked at was the New York Rangers. Now we go to their very close by rivals, the New Jersey Devils. What should we expect from them? Will they once again be a playoff team? Can they take it further than they did last year? We'll discuss the Devils coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have the New Jersey Devils season preview upon us here today as we continue our way through the Metropolitan Division. We've now covered a variety of teams, including the Rangers most recently. Before that, we had the Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now we're halfway through. We still have 4 teams left, and then we'll finish up here with teams in the Central before the NHL season gets underway. So in case you're new to the series, we're going to recap the 24-25 campaign, take a look at how things went for the team, some of their top players. We'll look at their cap space, how the team changed over the course of the offseason, any rookies that might be exciting for them to watch this year, any big contract extensions that should be coming, any players that could be traded, what's their projected lineup look like, and what's the top questions facing this team going into the season. So let's start with recapping last year for the New Jersey Devils, who had a pretty solid campaign overall, 91 points, record of 42, 33-7, third place in the Metropolitan Division, of course behind the Capitals, who were a bit of a surprise last year, and the Carolina Hurricanes. They scored 240 goals, 20th best. That certainly needs to be better. I think if they're going to, be able to move up in the standings, take it further in the playoffs, that they do need to produce a little bit more goals. Goals against was really good, 220, fifth best in the league since they've addressed their goaltending here over the last 1 or 2 years with the additions of Markstrom and Allen. They've got themselves a pretty good tandem, and really overall team defense and goaltending has been pretty good. So that part needs to stay the same ideally, because that was a really good result. Ultimately, though, they did have a good season, got in the playoffs, were third in that 2-3 matchup against Carolina, but they didn't really have a lot of success, losing that series in 5 games. 4 games won to Carolina. It was the first year for Sheldon Keefe. Now, it's also worthy of noting that this was a 10-point improvement over the previous season. So, to go from 81 to 91 is a good step forward. We also seen some significant injuries on this team as well as the season went along later in the year, which I think definitely impacted their ability to be more impactful in the playoffs. Obviously, having Jack Hughes miss another 20 games plus playoffs was not ideal. And he wasn't the only one. For sure. Now, this team has made the playoffs 2 out of the past 3 years. We saw, 3 years ago, they made the playoffs for the first time in a long time, had a good season, but then took a step back, dropped, like I said, to 81 points, and then this past year they improved by 10 points, going up to 91. But before the last 3 years, where they've been in 2 of the 3 seasons, they missed 9 out of the previous 10, and they haven't won a playoff series since 2012. So the last couple of years, they've been better. You could blame, to some degree, there was maybe a direction of coaching. Maybe it was a little bit of injuries. But overall, the last couple of years, they've been better. But they do need to take another step if they really want to take advantage of some of their, core young players that they have in this lineup. A lot of their younger players are, kind of a little more ripe now, a little more mature. And it's time to take that next step to really see what this team is capable of. They've got a veteran net-minding tandem. They've got a good mix of youth and veterans in both the D-core and the forward group. So it's definitely time. Now, looking at last year's top scores, Jesper Bratt led the way with 88 points. Jack Hughes was on pace to have that title, but unfortunately, like I said, with the injury again, putting him out for the final, missing 20 games last year. He had 70 points, so he was over a point per game player. He probably would have been right there with Bratt, but at the same time, injuries cut it short. But a good season for when he was there for sure. Nico Hischier was third with 69 points, Timo Meier 53, and Luke Hughes with 44, leading the D-core. Timo Meier is a player I definitely would like to see more of. I mean, he's been good since he's been a Devil, but he hasn't reached those levels you saw in San Jose. Like, we haven't had a 40-goal campaign. I do think there's a lot more in the Timo train, if you will, to give to the Devils. And I think for them to take a step, his improvements and getting back to his old ways, if he's able to do that, will play a massive role. Now, going into the season, they have cap space of $5 million. But as I record this video, and I'm recording this video on Monday, it should hit YouTube likely on Tuesday, as I record this right now, Luke Hughes is not signed. So $5 million in space might sound good and dandy, but when you've got a top player like Luke Hughes that needs a contract, you know his AAV is going to be well above $5 million. So that certainly creates a conundrum on what you're going to do. So clearly they have to figure out the best way to handle this. Now they do have some flexibility because of injuries. I know like Kovacevic, for example, is going to miss significant time this year with a knee injury suffered in the offseason. So they will be able to get some cap relief through LTIR for his contract for part of the year at least. But they need to figure some things out here. Now let's look at how this team has changed. Additions and subtractions. Throughout the course of the offseason, there was a fair bit of players no longer in the organization. Looking at that list, it includes Nathan Bastian, Shane Bowers, Justin Dowling, Nolan Foote, Eric Howla, who was moved kind of as a cap casualty as well, Curtis Lazar, Tomas Tatar, Daniel Sprong, and Brian Dumoulin, who finished up the season as a deadline pickup. So, ultimately these players not coming back. New to the team, there's not a lot of wowness, but Connor Brown comes over from the back-to-back Cup finalists Edmonton Oilers, who's obviously since a few years back when he had that significant injury and missed basically the whole season. Kind of rehabbed his career through his time with Edmonton, reuniting with old junior teammate Connor McDavid, old junior coach Chris Knobloch. Also new to the team, coming over from the Ottawa Senators, Group 6 UFA, was Angus Crookshank. Crookshank's a player who went the college hockey route, spent a good amount of time there. It's had opportunities in Ottawa, but mostly when he did play was more of a bottom six role. Was pretty good in Belleville, looking for more of an opportunity, so he moves along. Evgeny Dadanov as well comes over from the Dallas Stars. He's bounced around a lot in recent years, but a decent supporting cast veteran, if you will. And then Thomas Bordelot, who was cut loose from the San Jose Sharks, lands with the Devils as well. Now looking at rookies that could impact this team this year, I think there's a couple of interesting ones. Arseny Gritchuk, of course, is getting a lot of attention. He will definitely get games this year and has an opportunity to grab a spot. Seamus Casey will be another defenseman as well, and I wouldn't rule out Edwards on the back end as well. Casey and Edwards both could have opportunity depending on how long this Luke Hughes thing lasts, between Hughes being out with the no contract situation and Kovacevic out with injury. That could create an opportunity for some of these young defensemen to get more of an opportunity. But I'd be surprised if Luke Hughes is not signed by opening night, but we will see where things go. Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked either. That's why I'm prepping this in the right way here, that I'm recording this before he signs. If the odd chance he signs in the next 24 hours, I'm not going to redo this video. I will just update the pinned comments, so look for the news on that front. But clearly, a Hughes signing, though, will trigger another move. So, besides rookies, we're also going to look at players who could be traded. And, well, to be honest, they likely need to do something. Depending on injuries, maybe they can get through with Hughes with some LTIR relief. Maybe not. It just kind of depends. They might be able to buy some time, but at some point here, they're going to have to do something. You're looking at players like, maybe Palat. I know he has some trade protection. I think he's a player they'd like to move, but that might be tricky to do. They've also got Dougie Hamilton, whose future will be in question. I don't think that Hamilton's a player they'd like to move this season, but his long-term future is definitely in question, with Luke Hughes likely getting a $9 million cap hit, which is what's speculated. If he's going to be making $8-9 million, which is what Hamilton makes, he's already the highest scoring defenseman. He's going to get power play one time. It kind of reduces Hamilton's role and kind of makes him less necessary, if you will, right? So, there's definitely lots of speculation about Dougie Hamilton's future. Nico Dawes is another player to watch, not so much for the cap hit, but for the fact that he may not pass through waivers. Is another player that's going to be interesting to watch as the Devils cut down their roster, because he is a goalie that I could see maybe getting claimed on waivers if he has to go down, he's not going to be in the top 1 or 2 spots in that position on the team, barring injuries. So, we'll see what happens on that front. But as far as contract extensions that can make news this year, the main one for me would be goalie Jacob Markstrom. There's been some speculation that They've already begun talks about extending Markstrom. They'd like to extend it for at least a few years. They'd like to keep the tandem of Markstrom and Allen together. They signed Jake to a long-term deal, 5 years, which his age in the mid-30s, I was a little surprised to give him that long of a term, but clearly it was kind of help the AAV be lower as well. But they'd like to do something similar with Markstrom and have their veteran netminder tandem stay together for, I would think, at least 3 or 4 more seasons. But we will see what things, how things are worked out between those two. Right now, they're not real close to a deal. I think they'd like to see Markstrom take a little bit of a small pay cut, and we'll see if he's on board with that or not. The projected opening night lineup right now for the Devils include Markstrom and Allen being your tandem between the pipes. On the D-core, we're going to have a top pair likely of Dougie Hamilton and Jonas Siegenthaler. Assuming he gets a contract, Luke Hughes with Brett Pesce, and then Brendan Dillon and Nemec as your third pair, with Kovacevic being out long term. It's hard to say when he comes back. Probably looking at, I think they said it was going to be a few months for sure. And then you've got Seamus Casey and Ethan Edwards kind of battling for some playing time as well. One of them would grab Hughes' spot, of course, if he remains unsigned on opening night. In the forward group, you're looking at a top line of Hughes and Bratt for sure. Daily Faceoff's projection has a placeholder there of Dadonov maybe being on that line, with the second line of Hischier down the middle with Meyer and Mercer. I suspect third line of Glass down the middle with Connor Brown and probably Stefan Nason. But I got to wonder too, where does Palat fit, or is he even going to be in the lineup? Because they get a fourth line, maybe of Cotter, Gritchick, and maybe Lamico. So it's kind of hard to say how this all plays out. It's hard to see a real solid spot there for Andre Palat, but he could be in there. But I mean, you're not going to take Nason now. Nason had like 40 points for them last year. I could even see Nason getting a chance to play with Hughes and Bratt over Dadonov and move them to. I was a little surprised to see Daily Faceoff have that projection, but we'll see how things play out here through training camp with New Jersey. Now, the top questions facing this team are, can they repeat the top 3 performance or better? And I do think the answer to that is yes. All the tools are there. The big question besides that is, can Jack Hughes stay healthy? Jack Hughes has had a lot of injuries, missed a lot of time in his fairly young career. Great offensive player, still small in stature. And, as we saw at the Four Nation tournament, when the hockey gets, a little bit tighter and less space and a little more physical, he gets a little bit less effective and has suffered a lot of injuries. So that's my concern, is can they win with Jack Hughes being their best player, our most dynamic offensive player? That is a big question. They don't have a ton of size on this team. So, I mean, that's, Bratt's not an overly big guy. Mercer's okay, but not huge. Hischier, they're not all these guys aren't small, but they're not big either, right? So, Timo Meyer's a little bit bigger, but again, doesn't really always play like it. So that's a big question for me, is can they win with that type of lineup? Can Jack Hughes stay healthy? We know he can be a dynamic player. Would I be shocked if he played 80, 82 games this year and put up 100 points? No, I would not. Would not in the least. But that's what this team needs if they're going to have a shot to take this thing further. And of course, what will the impact be if Luke Hughes, does miss camp? Because at this point he's missed a good chunk of it. What if he misses all of it? And we've seen players miss camp. It generally is not good. You just set them back, and their timing and readiness to begin the season. Even if he were to get signed close to opening night and play in the first game, is he going to be at his full ready self? Or is he going to be off a little bit to start the year? Because if I know he's training somewhere and getting all the reps in, but you just can't duplicate what they're doing in training camp and preseason action. So that's my concern, is how long he remains unsigned, and his brother Jack, his health. Those are the two biggest concerns I've got. Secondary scoring is a little bit of a concern as well. Do they have enough there? Obviously, after Hughes and Bratt, you've got Hischier. Can they get more out of Meyer? Can Dawson Mercer be more consistent? Can Connor Brown, Dadonov, Glass, and these guys in the bottom 6, can they produce enough from those bottom 2 lines? That's another question. Looking at the bottom 2 lines, I wonder, right? So, that's some questions. But I do see with the Metropolitan Division the way it's set right now, I think the Devils should be a top 3 team again. Wouldn't even be surprising if they were in the top 2. I do think Washington is a team that's going to be interesting for me to watch. I'm not sure they can duplicate what they did last year. I think they'll still be good, but not necessarily at that level. So I think that it could very well be between the Canes and the Devils again. So I think we could see a little bit of a flip that way, but we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts on and expectations here for the Devils for the 25-26 season down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, analysis, and of course, plenty more videos to come in this series before the beginning of the 25-26 season. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.